Last week's presidential candidate debate hosted by CNBC has been considered one of the most flagrant examples of bias in the media. So biased, in fact, that the RNC has pulled out of the MSNBC debates. Carl, do you think the moderators were unfairly biased?
Well, they were probably biased. Whether or not it was unfairly is a different story altogether. I am not one who accepts the media is far too liberal mindset. However, that said, the moderators at this particular debate I thought were particularly petty. I thought there was a bias in all seriousness there. When you had a debate that was supposed to be about issues, I mean, the easiest thing in the world to moderate, Governor Christie, what's your tax plan?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Governor
exactly.
Bush, what are
What's
your
your
objections to that tax plan? What do you guys think about it? Easiest thing in the world to moderate, but no, these moderators had to go for cheap shots. They had to go for, I mean, you hear in the media, you hear gotcha moments, that sort of thing. And I am not one who generally agrees that the media is biased. That debate, however, I was cringing.
Well, and I would be the
debate.
first to agree with you that I don't think that there is an automatic liberal bias on the part of the media. I think you have certain outlets like Fox that is very conservatively biased.
And then you got
and
more liberal ones,
MSNBC
but
who's very
overall,
liberally
yeah.
biased. That would, I think the same thing would have happened if you had a Democratic debate on at Fox News.
Could
And
well be.
that the moderators are ultimately, on those particular outlets, not necessarily trying to ask the questions that need to be asked from a voter's standpoint, but rather trying to play to their base audience
You
in
got
order
some
to get ratings.
sensationalism going
You know
on
what,
here.
though?
and it
But you know
doesn't-
what,
it
though?
didn't
And
belong.
I've heard this from a couple of the candidates relative to particular questions and others' inability to answer. That if you're going to be the most influential, powerful person in the free world, you got to be able to stand up and take questions from whoever.
well,
And
what
the
about-
fact, wait a minute, the fact that they're pulling out of MSNBC, and I don't like MSNBC particularly, but the fact it's ridiculous because guess what? You don't want softball questions from Republican-leaning moderators at a Republican debate. These guys got to know how to answer the tough questions because sure as hell Putin's going to ask them.
And actually, Jim, I think you bring up a great point, which is, and actually, Obama went out and said that, kind of tongue-in-cheek saying that, look, if these guys are scared of getting questions from MSNBC, what about talking to the Chinese premier or Putin, who are not going to ask
I don't think
couch
they are.
questions?
I think this ridiculous idiot that's running the RNC is the one that needs his
Rand's
head
free,
examined.
but I think it's absolutely ludicrous, frankly, to say that CNBC is liberal biased. I mean, they really are serving one of the 6 large corporations who owns most of the media in this country.
NBC gets
It's
the
not-
biased hat hung on their head because of MSNBC.
Yeah,
which
CNBC
a
is
subsidiary.
hardly.
Yeah, but I don't think. I mean, I
CNBC.
buy into the fact that many journalists are more liberal leaning than they are conservative leaning. But I think there are only a few journalists in that liberal leaning press that are far left. Just as I also think there are only a few Sean Hannitys and people like that in the world that are
the
far
people
right.
at CNBC are your Wall Street people.
They are.
Frankly, they don't like a number of those candidates up on that stage. It has nothing to do with liberal and conservative here. This is much more establishment or not, or they are frightened of these people who seem to be lightly tethered to reality.
Right, and the
That's
one
the
good thing that
difference.
I like
came
that,
out,
lightly tethered to
the one
reality.
thing that came out good out of this entire debate is that the moderate or I wouldn't say necessarily moderate or establishment, but people like the more centrist candidates are the ones who did really well because they're the ones to answer questions.
Kasich said he had no problem with that debate. Kasich.
Well, and you know
And
what?
Rubio
I've heard that
asked
from
him much.
a number of candidates, and the ones, frankly, in my mind that are serious competitors, I don't think any of them really did. You've got to be able to answer
Yeah,
those tough
there's a
questions.
difference.
And you
Now,
actually
now
have
what
to have
bugged
a
me-
platform
and I
that you can defend
What
in
bugged-
any sort of forum.
Yeah, what bugged me about that debate, you hit on it, I believe, was the pettiness of a lot of the questions and the fact that we're dealing with this minutia.
But
Come on,
it's
guys.
news as entertainment.
Well,
No, but it shouldn't be entertainment. This is about the future of our country.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah, and see, that's what bugs me. And I
Ratings.
Yeah, and I hate to stay in the defense of any Republican almost, but it doesn't serve the public well when you have a debate and it's not a debate. It's
doesn't.
sensationalism news. It's sensationalism news in the making.
Yeah, but
doesn't
part
serve
of
the
it
public
was
well.
the
They should-
responsibility of the
they-
candidates.
This is true, and they should be able to take on tough questions and that sort of thing. But the public deserves to be truly informed of these issues, and they weren't given the opportunity they should have been given at the debate.
Well, and so
some
the
of them were
people that
brought up.
want to be informed, they're going to look at that fiasco and say, you know what, this is why I don't watch politics, this is why I don't get involved.
Yeah, it does a
The heck with
disservice
this,
to
I'm
that.
gone
Yeah.
again for another 4 years.
Well, the sad part to that is, regardless, and I agree with your point, Jim. The sad part of that is, regardless how badly portrayed the entire political process is, one of the issues that we have in this country is the fact that people are tuning out. Right, regardless what the reason is, people need to be involved.
Yes.
And they need to understand what the issues are. And you don't necessarily have to like everybody who's on a podium in order to respect them.
No.
So we shouldn't look at people as a personality. We should look at them as the ideas that they're putting forward, their platform. And I think, again, my personal opinion, and I agree with Carl in terms of some of the nastiness that came out in the process, but ultimately, what we need to focus on is the candidates themselves, what the ideas that they have, and whether they're going to be good, in our opinion, as voters for the country.
Yeah, well, I think, somebody like Ted Cruz, I mean, just realize who was in the audience. That audience was their audience, Ted Cruz and company. And as soon as they got a chance to do one of their favorite topics, blame the media, well, then they shifted the topic themselves away from some of the central issues by focusing on this, which they often do this.
Well, look, and
So they have part of the responsibility. If you ask me, they could have said something and moved on and say, well, I want to talk about this.
Well,
really-
in some cases they did.
This
There
is
were a
true.
couple of people that stood up and said, come on, guys,
Yeah,
what
but
are
out
we
of
doing
the
here?
10,
but
Out of the 10, that was like 2 of them.
But
Yes,
here's the
exactly.
reality of the matter is, and I'm no fan of anybody on that particular stage. Ted Cruz is not a serious candidate. Neither is Donald Trump. But you have to look at some of the more serious candidates like Rubio, like Bush, even though he's not doing very well in terms of his likability. But people who actually, and Christie and some of these other guys who actually have governing experience and are more serious, whether you agree with them or not, more serious politicians that actually bring something
What
to the
makes
table.
you say that somebody like Trump is not a serious candidate? Do you think Carson's a serious candidate?
No.
Why?
Because I don't think he has enough experience and he is too prone to stick both feet in his mouth.
But look at where he is in the polls.
Well, he was in the polls up to a week ago.
He's still high.
He is still high, but I think after the last debate, some of the other candidates are more serious, well, arguably.
I happen to agree with you, but the thing is, the whole idea of a serious candidate just has to be boggled because they're sitting so high in the polls right now, and I think we're all just waiting for Trump and Carson to fall away and see the fight start between Bush and Rubio. I think
And
what
maybe
we're all
we
waiting
are,
to
and
see.
maybe the public will get sick of the comedy act that is Donald Trump, but maybe they won't. I mean, we've elected an actor before, aka Ronald Reagan.
But he wasn't
and
a
frankly,
Ringling and Brothers showman, though, like Trump
You know what
is.
though? But
And
it
I
turned
have
out
to agree
okay.
with both of you guys, but unfortunately I'm going to have to take the last word on that and close the segment.
Oh, so there it is. He doesn't want to talk about it anymore, so he closes
That's
the
right.
segment. Go ahead,
Be that
Colin.
way.
Next up, on the flip side, there have been some recent changes in the Washington County building codes. How will it affect you? Stick around and find out.